Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to give it a little bit of time to let folks join in, but I wanted to provide you with the link to the presentation. I'm going to put that in the chat. Awesome. So if you can, enter the Nearpod activity by clicking on the live version. So there are two links, live and self-paced, or you can enter from nearpod.join and then enter the code 8TMN2. And I'll hover over that to see when folks are. Is Sarah in there? Welcome. Okay, let's see. Awesome. See you both in there. And so the first page just shows you the goals for this session so that you can take a look. Let me share my screen as well. Oh, okay. Jack, I don't have the ability to share screen, but you can share it or I can share it on this device. It's disabled.
I will fix that for you now.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to repost the information to join the Nearpod activity. If you can click on the live version, that'd be great. Thank you for joining and for your time today.
You should be able to share now. Check it and see if it'll work for you.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Are you able to see it? Awesome, okay. So grab the Nearpod link in the chat and the live version and hop on over to the Nearpod activity if you can. If you are not able to join on Nearpod because you're on your phone or you're unfamiliar and you'd like to participate via chat, I'll try to hover over the chat as well so that I'm still getting your feedback throughout the session. Okay, so today we are talking about meaningful change towards educational equity. So when I say meaningful change, to me, meaningful change is making an impact within my lifetime that serves a greater purpose. So that's meaningful change towards educational equity means working towards meeting the needs of all students in a learning space. And I truly believe that when you meet the needs of students furthest from educational justice, you would have met all of your students. So if you come from that frame of mind or something similar, you're more likely to make that equitable approach and take that equitable approach to educational equity. So I'm going to share a little bit about my personal journey, the lessons I've learned. I'm going to share with you some resources and a call for action. So we're going to talk about mission, shared vision, and values, and co-develop a mission statement that you can then use in your own space that I will credit you for. And you know, it's really yours to use. And the practice should hopefully help if you are doing this advocacy work, or if you feel like you're in a group where you need to kind of ground yourself in your why, right? It helps to be clear about what our goals are, and this is a great way to do so. Okay, so before we start, I want to take a minute to get to know you a little bit more. So we're going to talk about, you know, what are some self-care activities that bring you joy and peace, and give you an opportunity to share that with other educators in the room. And It's a collaborative activity. So go ahead and jot down your thoughts. I'll start out so that you can see sort of what I mean. So I'm going to say my name is Maria Jacob, and I share common ground with anyone who likes to hike or camp. That brings me peace and joy and really allows me an opportunity to practice self-care, to reduce screen time, to spend time with family, and to focus on some mindfulness. So go ahead and jot down your thoughts. Awesome. Jemiah says, I share common ground with anyone who likes to exercise in any form. Love that. So I also encourage you to, sort of like any of these suggestions that you also share common ground with, right? So if you're someone that likes to exercise in any form, that's great. Tracy says, I share common ground with anyone who likes to read. Absolutely. I share common ground with anyone who likes to read as well. That's great. Joara, and please correct me if I say your name incorrectly. I share common ground with anyone who loves to travel. Yes. I can't wait to go back to Trinidad. It's so unfortunate, but yes. Sarah says, I share common ground with anyone who likes to read for fun or does their makeup. I definitely love the first part. Yeah, I don't wear makeup, but that's awesome. Okay, Arvion says, I share common ground with people who enjoy meditation. That's awesome. I am so happy that works for you. That's great. And hopefully others find that activity really useful. Thank you so much. Helen says, I share common ground with anyone who does a skincare routine, exercise, and spend time with family. Yeah, that's awesome. That is really good. So thank you guys so much for sharing parts of you and what makes you, feel like you are in a place of joy and peace. That matters so much when we do this work. It's not easy work. I'll be very honest about that. If you've done this work or are now starting to do this work, it's not going to be easy. So self-care is the best care. And I think that these tools are great ways to take care of yourself so that you can advocate for yourself and others. That's great. Okay, let me make sure I didn't leave any out. Okay. So I'm going to talk briefly about my personal journey, and I want to be honest and let you know that being vulnerable is just not something I typically do. It's very uncomfortable for me, but I want you to understand a little bit more about me and my experience, and hopefully it will shed some light as you do this work. So I ask for your grace and kindness, because this is not something I typically do, and it's certainly the first time I'm speaking openly about it. So I am born and raised in Trinidad. I have had my fair share of trauma, mostly childhood trauma, but even with all of that, I truly benefited from whole community. My entire community really stepped up to help when my family or my mom or dad couldn't. So whether it was the neighbor combing me and my sister's hair to go to school at 6 o'clock in the morning, 4 girls braiding hair, or it was, someone looking after us so that we weren't being bullied, stopping that from happening. I truly benefited from the kindness of my small community. And so to me, it is absolutely possible to thrive in any learning space despite having experienced trauma. But we all have to show up for our students and practice a whole community approach to doing so. And so that's my mindset when I approach educational equity. I believe every student has the ability to thrive, and I want to see students thrive. And I believe it's my job, it's our job to do that. But we have to also be able to take care of ourselves and we have to be in a space that is safe for us. So I want to show you what this looked like for me. So I served as a president at a South Seattle PTSA for 2 years. My why for joining was one of my students went to school there and needed extra support. It was a great way for me to relay and communicate with his educators and understand better what his day looked like. And it meant a lot to have an adult in the school that he trusted and believed in. So I took on the role as the leader. I'll be honest and say upon reflection that it was a tokenized leader position, meaning it looked good on paper to have an African American serve as the PTA leader. And I truly believe that is largely why I was voted in. So when I got in, we talked about appreciating diverse ideas and perspectives, right? It didn't last too long. We moved quickly into microaggressions and harm. And so this is where someone that has experienced trauma, this re-triggered my trauma, particularly feeling like you're not loved, feeling like you don't belong. That's a trigger for me. That's something I had to learn, but I had to recognize when others were doing harm, right? So once recognizing that there was a larger issue we needed to take care of, I took a large step back. We talked about mission, vision, and values. We spent an entire meeting drafting a mission, vision, and value statement. It was the first step we took to really grounding ourselves in the work we do. It helped with buy-in. It helped us focus on a larger purpose, right? So outside of a particular field trip, outside of a particular activity that we'd want to fund, we focused on what is our purpose here? To serve students, a diverse student body in an equitable manner. So we focused on that. It helped with accountability. We also worked towards transparency. So meetings were recorded moving forward. It allowed for us to hold ourselves accountable to what we say and do. It allowed for us to share information with parents that weren't in the room, right? And it allowed for those who could not be in the room to still participate in the process. Along the way, I heard many hurtful things, some of which I've put here, I'm too aggressive. That's one of them. There was the meetings before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting that I didn't know about a lot of times. And then the rumors and lies started spreading. So I became a scapegoat. I pushed equity to the point of tension, and that led to communications and misunderstandings. Now that is how it was worded to me. I had to do a lot of reflection along the way to focus really on what is happening and how is it making me feel, and to really help identify some of these microaggressions that are sometimes hard to name, right? We ignored policies and procedures and almost jeopardized our entire voting process along the way. 2 years later, I did decide at the end of this year, so June of this year, I did decide that I have completed my obligation for this school year and I am not able to engage in this particular organization. Now, that being said, there was a lot of lessons to be learned, and I want to share some of those with you. So I truly believe anyone with access to children has the power to impact the lives of children. And I take that very seriously, right? We have to have inclusive conversations about educational equity and how we get there, right? If we have adults in that building that have access to our children, these adults need to be a part of this conversation, right? Impactful efforts towards educational equity should come from a whole community perspective. I do practice a lot of community service for this reason. I benefited a great deal from having the kindness of strangers my community, the kindness of my community that raised me into who I am today. And I am eternally grateful to them for taking me on as their kid, right? Me and my sisters. My purpose for pushing a whole community perspective is that when your kid is on their way to school, they need to be safe. When your kid is at school, they need to be safe. When our kids are outside of school, they need to be safe. That takes an entire community. Okay, lesson number 1, focusing on your why. Inspire and mobilize your efforts by being clear about your shared vision, your mission, and your values, right? So what are your core values? How do they impact your vision? And how do they work towards your mission, right? Lesson number 2, don't wait for others to start this work. There are a lot of people invested in maintaining privilege. We can't wait for them to get on board. We can do a lot to work on engaging everyone, but we can't wait to start the work. We start it now and ask others to join us. This work is too important, and our kids deserve it. Lesson number 3, a good handoff. I'll be honest, it took me a whole year to give a good handoff. My whole purpose for serving for a second year was to make sure that I left that organization in a better place than when I entered it. I wanted to make sure I wasn't continuously perpetuating a pattern of we have a tokenized leader, they're burnt out, they leave. I wanted to make sure I was truly helping the next leader to be able to do that work. So pass the baton, but give a good handoff, right? I don't know if you're familiar with track, but we would have to do push-ups. My coach would make us do push-ups if we didn't do a good handoff. So a lot of times that handoff really matters. You're in a relay, right? We're in a relay towards educational equity. A good handoff means the next person taking on that job is in a better place to do more good. Okay? Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to help me draft a mission statement. So I'm going to go over some tips, and then we're going to do a collaborative effort of developing a mission statement towards educational equity. So when we talk about a mission statement, we talk about our why, long-term and short-term goals that complete particular tasks, right? So for us, that means we want students to have a quality education in an environment that is safe for them to learn, grow, and thrive. That's what I believe is, a bigger purpose with educational equity. But that's your why, right? Some version of that's your why. There's the shared vision. I believe this almost matters more. So your shared vision requires you to acknowledge where we are in the educational system and how our actions will make the world a better place for all. So we are matching our passion for helping children with a greater purpose. So that is the place where you talk about not equality, but equity, and truly understanding the difference between the two. Now, we as educators of color might have a better idea of what equity looks like, but it's really important that we share this information with all adults that have access to our children so they understand what that greater purpose looks like, right? What we envision the future to be for our children, generations to come. Our core values. Consider you and your group's core values that matter to your particular mission. So here are examples of core values: kindness, empathy, honesty, respect, patience, courage, perseverance, diversity, inclusion, optimism, courage, and equal opportunities. So that's some examples, and they speak particularly on the social and emotional learning skills, and they matter to group work. quite a bit. So what are our core values that relate to our mission? Okay, so this is an opportunity for us to consider this mission statement. We're going to think about either keywords or sentences we would want to communicate in a mission statement surrounding educational equity. I would love to see your ideas before I post any of mine, but if you don't mind sharing a sentence, a keyword, or more than one keyword that works for you, we will co-develop this and I will send out the final product, right, via the conference organizers so that you have access to the final product as well. So short and long-term tasks and how we complete those tasks related to educational equity is my ask of you today. So Tracy wrote, provide space for community to share feedback. Thinking about the completion of tasks would include the system in place to review and respond to that feedback in a meaningful way. All right, that's really important. So that's the evaluation of this good work as well, right? We need to create the space to be in community and share information. And doing so requires us to work together, listen to each other's perspectives, and get to a place where we can continuously improve on the educational experience for everyone, right? For the students in the school, for the adults in the room, right? We need a safe space to do that for sure. I love it. So we want a space for the community to share feedback. Okay. Tracy, are you amenable to changing that to provide safe space? Can I copy and repost this? Provide safe space. Okay. Awesome. I'm going to take it into parts. And then if you're writing a sentence, feel free. If not, we can also work on if you see something on here and it resonates with you and you're like, I've got one, I've got a little bit of a revision, please feel free to copy and paste as well. This is what collaboration looked like for us. It took an entire hour on our PTA, but it was so important. So thinking about the completion of tasks, we would need a system in place to respond to that feedback. So that's an evaluation process for sure. So evaluate. I'm going to put it here and then Tracy, you can let me know if you agree with it. So evaluate the completion of tasks that would include systems in place to review and respond to that feedback in a meaningful way. That's beautiful. Tracy, are you amenable to this change?
Looks good to me.
Awesome. This is great. If you don't have a sentence in mind, put a keyword that means something to you, that you feel like is important in this work, in this mission. Be vulnerable, open-minded, and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is great. So I would say that's important in terms of when we talk about authenticity, we need vulnerability. We need to be open-minded. So in order for us to be authentic, we need a safe space to do that. So we need to be open-minded to different ideas and perspectives and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. These courageous conversations are going to require you to get out of your comfort zone, for sure. So I love this, Jemiah. I think as it's written, the only thing I would add to it is be vulnerable and authentic, if you don't mind that change. What do you think about that, Jemiah?
I don't mind. Go for it.
Awesome. Thank you. This is great work. So I had people that knew me well and knew me well before my PTA work. And I've had many conversations about like, you need to talk about what you're seeing behind the scenes so that we're all understanding why we have to redo the budget so that it's more broad and so that every PTA leader coming down the line has the flexibility and freedom, right, to do that work. So we need to make space for authenticity. Okay. Reflection, yes. So Claire, do you think this reflection is important for the group to do and also the individual, or do you mean more like as an organization?
I think in all aspects, as an individual, it's definitely important to reflect on your actions and the things that are going on, but also it can be very meaningful as an organization in order to know like where and how to pivot and what's going well and what needs work.
I love that. So I'm going to need your help with this one, if you don't mind, Claire. I'm going to post sort of what captured what you just said, but I think it needs some wordsmithing, if you don't mind helping me through it. That this is important work. When we reflect, we need to think about, we have to pivot. We're talking about diverse ideas and perspectives. We have to think about how others relate in this world and what needs work, right? That is really awesome. I love that. That self and group reflection work is so important. Awesome. So we have some goals, short-term and long-term goals, right? Short-term, showing up to the space, coming from a place of being vulnerable, being open-minded, and being comfortable being uncomfortable, right? So that's a short-term goal. We want everyone showing up to the space with the same mindset. And if folks don't feel like they can be, how do we get there? That's the evaluations, okay? So, you know, if we're getting feedback that I don't feel safe in this space, okay, how can we make this space more safe and comfortable for others, right? Let me make sure I'm checking the chat as well. Okay, I don't think there was anything else in the chat that I missed. Awesome. Okay. So we talked about short-term goals. We talked about long-term goals in a bit. We talked about the importance of providing a safe space. Not everyone is going to feel safe. We do want to make it a space where it feels that way. And it's important to have some sort of evaluation process and an opportunity for us to self-reflect and group reflect on our work, on how we do our work, and whether we're working towards our mission. What needs tweaking? What needs changing, right? So I want to take this and move it into a document now so that I can then put this into one document that I can share with you. So I'm going to take parts of your mission, vision, and values. And I'm doing this so that you can see what it looks like when we have to do this work. I'll share with you at the end the Nearpod link with these changes, but also so that you can just use this in your own space and modify it as needed. Co-develop with your organizations ways to do this educational equity. So at this time, I would say if there's anything missing, if you believe there's anything missing, please feel free to put that in. I'm just copying and pasting for a little bit, so you have some time. And we are on schedule. Okay. This is great. Okay, let me share the PowerPoint so you can see it. I'll come back to the Nearpod, so feel free to keep using it. I'll make it bigger so everyone can see. Okay. So we're going to provide a safe space to share feedback. Thinking about the completion of the task would include the systems in place to review and respond to that feedback in a meaningful way. Be vulnerable and authentic, open-minded, and be comfortable with the uncomfortable. So first, the space needs to be safe to do that. That's a long-term goal. I believe just being honest about, you're likely, if you're doing this work, going to enter spaces where diverse ideas and perspectives are going to be challenged in some way. And so, yes, you want the space to be safe so that everyone feels comfortable being vulnerable and authentic. And then when we do that work, we're going to evaluate. Okay, so we've got this done. We're going to evaluate that and reflect. So I think the reflection comes before we evaluate that work. Reflect on where and how to pivot, where and what needs additional work, right? Okay. Let me check the Nearpod one more time. All right. So now we're getting to the place where we finalize this. Now we finalized this live during group so everyone feels like their input mattered in the moment. If there are others who can't make it to the meeting, it's important to set up listening sessions and opportunities for everyone to provide feedback. If folks can do it beforehand so that the live version serves as a way to incorporate feedback you've already gotten and then feedback that you're getting live, that will honor everyone's truth and will allow more people to participate. Not all families are going to make it to meetings. Not all adults are going to make it to the meetings, but the more perspectives and ideas you get, the more buy-in, right? So now we take ownership of this work. So I'm going to read each sentence and ask you to think about ways that you might want to tweak it in the process. I'm going to put educational equity. Okay. We aim to, would be my suggestion, because it may not be there and we need to be honest about that it's a goal. So we aim to provide a safe space for the community to share feedback. Does everyone feel comfortable with this addition to provide a safe space for the community to share feedback? Awesome. Okay, are there any changes to the first sentence as written? So you can either unmute yourself or put it in the chat. I'll highlight the entire sentence so you can see. We aim to provide a safe space for the community to share feedback. Let me see, how do I check the chat? Okay, awesome. Okay, moving on to the second sentence. Be vulnerable. We hope is, I don't know how to word this properly or if anyone else has suggestions, but I'm just thinking, can we add a we statement in front of that so that we know that this is for everyone, right? We hope or something like that. Be vulnerable and authentic, open-minded, and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That is so important. Maybe we'll work to it. Okay. We'll work towards. I love that. Okay, how do folks feel about, thanks, Tracy. Oh, nice. Okay. So there we go. This is the beauty of collaboration is we've thought about it and we're tweaking it, right? I like the word encourage. We hope to encourage others in, yes, okay, this is great. So let me put this here. We hope to encourage everyone. Does that sound good? In our space. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe the word encourage was there and I just misunderstood that then. Tracy, did you mean the encourage that was added in? I didn't see that part.
Yeah, I was looking at the way that it was phrased with encouraging people to be vulnerable, rather than just like off the bat expecting people to be that, but to encourage it might make things feel different.
Yes, I love that. Okay, we hope that our space and work encourages people to be vulnerable, authentic, open-minded, and comfortable with being uncomfortable. How do you guys feel about that? Let me highlight the sentence so you can see it. Try again, okay. And I'll read it one more time. We hope that our space and work encourage people. I think that's what it's trying to say. Encourage people to be vulnerable, authentic, open-minded, and comfortable with being uncomfortable. Any other changes to that sentence? Feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Awesome. Okay, I didn't see anything in the chat, although I don't even know if I'm seeing the chat. Oh, there we go. Okay. Next sentence. Reflection on where and how to pivot, where and what needs additional work. I don't think I did a very good job making this a sentence. Is there anyone that has a better way for me to phrase this? I truly appreciate the hard work you guys are doing right now.
Maybe we can say we engage in constant reflection. That helps us figure out where and how to pivot.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, engage in constant, let me highlight this again. Engage in constant reflection that helps us figure out where and how to pivot, where and what needs additional work. Any other suggestions for that sentence? I didn't see who spoke, so thank you so much. That was great. How do folks feel about that sentence as written? Engage in constant reflection that helps us figure out where and how to pivot. I want to almost add another and here, and where and what needs additional work. How do folks feel about that? Okay. All right, and we are down, I think, to the last sentence. Evaluate the completion of the task would include the systems in place to review and respond to that feedback in a meaningful way. So let me highlight that sentence so you can see it. How do folks feel about this sentence as written? If you have any suggestions. And we're coming up on the end of time. So I would say unless there's any changes. Okay, so I will say we have successfully finalized a mission statement related to educational equity, and I could not have done it without your help today. I hope that you saw how you would do this in practice should you take on this work. I do think it helps quite a bit with buy-in, and I want to leave time for you to ask any questions you may have. We have about 2 minutes left for questions. And then I'm going to post my contact information so that if you can't think of any questions right now, but you want to have the ability to reach out, I want to make sure I provide that for you. Put my email as well. Yeah, so Jemiah says, thank you so much for this. I really appreciated this session, and we'll be working through what we started from my teaching career. That's awesome. Glad to hear it.
Maria, before you break off, can I add something too?
Yeah.
So super exciting. Maria is actually one of our vendors this year. So the links that we've been sharing all throughout the conference, and you can find them on Eventbrite as well, that will link you to her Teachers Pay Teachers page if you're interested in purchasing any resources through that. So definitely take a moment today and check those out.
Yes, and I do have a huge classroom management resource that I plan to post this summer. So follow me if you'd like access to
I will
freebies.
stop recording. Stick around for a little bit if anybody wants to talk about this.
I think someone else is talking.
I got it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I meant to say, yeah, feel free to follow so that you get access to discounts when products are first available. And if you don't see something on there, it doesn't mean I don't have it. Always feel free to reach out. So that's my email. So the next slide on the live link is also a survey. Feel free to fill it out. I'm always looking for ways to improve my work. So please feel free to have any suggestions in there or just give your feedback. I'd really appreciate it. And thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, Tracy, so much for the help and support.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you all for coming. We hope that you'll join us for the unconference, which is coming up next, which will be really exciting because it'll be an interactive conversation with those who are in attendance. So you can head on back to the Eventbrite and we will see you all over there.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
I will share the survey later on as well with the link. I don't have it on me. Thanks so much, everyone.